Today, we are going to talk all about power. This talk has been many weeks and many moons in the making, and I'm just pleased as punch that you are all here. I made a lot of big promises up front in the emails and so forth about what we're going to do and what we're going to establish. And so I'm going to do my very best to make good on all of those and to really demonstrate, like a big goal of mine is to demonstrate the importance of power, of bringing it into our focus, of cultivating it, of making it into a priority. And I'll do that by hopefully showing you what becomes possible, how power in many cases is the missing link, the missing piece that once it is activated, once it is really activated in our lives, then it just guides us forward. It creates this kind of propulsion effect. It has an amplification effect about the other qualities of ours and opens up a lot of doors that are otherwise closed. So it is very cool in that way. And so the title, therefore, is Crucial Insights on Understanding and Being Power. So as promised, there were three things I said we're going to do, and I want to start with them here. Number one being how to set and maintain healthy boundaries. We're starting here because I want you to come away with this. I want to ensure that you come away with this with very practical, usable things. And in particular, this and the other two things I'm going to talk about just up front. These are things that we can learn in the beginning and then become masterful at. So there's like a level 1 of this thing, there's a level 2 of it, there's a level 3, there's a level 4, and a level 5. So for example, setting and maintaining healthy boundaries, there's a level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can use this guideline to level yourself up in terms of setting and maintaining healthy boundaries. So the trick is that asking, how do I set and maintain healthy boundaries, is a misnomer. It's actually an incorrect question that gets us lost along the way. The trick is not about knowing how, it's about having a willingness to. If we're being honest with ourselves, we know how to set and maintain healthy boundaries in a way that's mature and loving and respectful of everybody in the room. It's just actually doing it. So if we're not doing it, why don't we enforce boundaries? Why don't we maintain boundaries with people? Well, the reason is that it's nerve-wracking for a lot of us, especially those of us who are just really nice people, really empathetic and caring, the type of person who would be on a call such as this. It can be really nerve-wracking to set a boundary because we don't know what we're going to get. There is typically a power dynamic in play when it comes to a person or a thing with whom we're trying to negotiate a boundary, where like by definition, if we feel nervous about saying, hey, please don't, would you be so kind as to not say that, or don't call me that, or, can we avoid this type of conversation, or, could you really make sure that you follow through on your promise when you promise you're going to do X, Y, and Z? So, when we feel nervous about asking this sort of thing, it means that we are in a position that is somewhat subordinate or lower than to the other person, even if only in a slight kind of very minuscule way. There's a dynamic in play. And there's always a fear that comes about when it comes time to ask for something, to ask for one of our needs to get met within a relationship. And that fear is we don't know what we're going to get. We don't know what the other person's going to say. Are they going to get mad? Are they going to get upset? Are they going to leave us? We don't know what they're going to do. And that fear keeps us within that boundary. That fear stops us from moving forward. The fear stops us from asking for what we need and setting that boundary. So that's why we don't. And so the key that will help you navigate your way through this, to set a healthy boundary, is to check in with your body and ask, does the body say yes, or does the body say no? The body, as we will discover, and as we will continue to discover, and as we will continue to learn, the body is a wonderful source of truth. And it's a wonderful way of navigating through a situation. If a person presents, say, an opportunity, or if they They present as sort of an invitation, like, hey, do you want to come do this thing? You can ask your body, does the body say yes? Does the body feel good about it? Does it feel invigorated? Does it feel sort of excited or curious? Then that's the body being a yes. And if it feels sort of obligatory, like heavy, gnarly, if it kind of makes your body go, like that kind of feeling, then that's a no. And so to set and enforce a boundary is simply to say yes when the answer is yes, and to say no when the answer is no. If you overthink it even a little bit, then you get lost in your mind, you get lost at sea. The key to the power in a relationship when it comes to boundaries is to immediately ascertain the yes or no and respect the yes or no, and to have so much respect for the yes or no that you're willing to stay on your own side as you proceed, as you make this decision. It is the one direct way to dissolve an unhealthy power dynamic. We're not being forceful or aggressive, which is crucial to see. It's not about, like, a lot of people have an old school idea of what a boundary is, where it's like, don't do that, stop. It's really like kind of dramatic and kind of like a whole drama around it. There's no need for that. No need to be forcefully aggressive, just a willingness to stay on your own side. So always checking with the body, yes or no. By the way, I'm going to just really breeze through a lot of this. If there's any question about anything, please just chat or raise your hand or do this on the camera or whatever, and we'll stop. And I would love to take your questions. So if none come up, I'll assume that there are none. Cool. Okay. So how to stop losing energy in conflict. How to stop losing energy in conflict with yourself and with others. So starting with conflict with yourself. Something we can ask ourselves right now. What in me am I trying to get rid of? What is there in me that I am trying to get rid of, to get away from, trying to argue with, trying to defeat, and even trying to heal, which can be a certain form of mild aggression that we inflict against ourselves. So what is that? Bring it into your mind. And then follow it up with the question, how would you treat it if it were the most precious aspect of you? There was an insight that came to me once when I was learning a lot about healing. And the big insight about healing is that anything that you discover in yourself that you are against, that you don't approve of, is an aspect of your very own self, your very own heart, that along the way had been fractured off, splintered off into another thing that's not you. And then as time went on, we went on with this narrative of me over here and that thing over there that I just can't stand. And then as time goes on, there's a buildup of polarity between myself and that thing. And then it gets to a point where we look at that thing and go, oh, I see, you're me. And then all of that aggression that hitherto we had been directing toward it is replaced with a profound love. Exactly how you treat it if it were the most precious aspect of you. And then when that love comes in, the separation, which was just a construction in our mind, dissolves in a minute. And there's a reunification of these two different aspects back into one thing. And all the strain and all the energy that was lost in the conflict, all the power that was misdirected against ourselves can now be wrangled in and used congruently towards the actual thing that we're here to do. All that energy is recovered. Stop losing energy in conflict with others. Well, it's basically the same principle. It's basically the same thing. So if you can imagine anybody with whom you're in conflict, doesn't matter what conflict, doesn't matter if they're even in your life anymore, just someone with whom you were once in conflict or still are in conflict with. You can ask, how would you treat them if they were your own self? The key to this, so it's like the only difference here is that we're dealing with somebody else's ego as opposed to our own. And when we're in conflict with somebody, we find that the other person's ego, the ego of the other, is really grating. It grates on us. It wears us down. It's difficult to endure. It's difficult to withstand. It's ugh. Key to dissolving conflict is to look through and ask, what is this person trying to get from me? What type of, for example, what type of reaction are they trying to get from me? What type of impression are they trying to make upon me? What type of admission or concession are they trying to manipulate from me? And then if you dare, you give it. Your own ego won't want that. Your own ego will be like, ew, no, no. It'll be the biggest no, because the ego holds a position against the other ego. And so in the wisdom that runs deeper than the ego, we say, okay, that which is trying to be manipulated from me is actually nothing. It's nothing. Like to admit something or say something or apologize for something or whatever. Like it's like there's nothing, there's no substance behind the thing that they're trying to get from us. So you give it. And then the game is done. The drama has come to a close. There's nothing left to polarize that conflict anymore. The conflict has dissolved. To look beyond the ego defense mechanism and speak to that which it's protecting. How to cultivate focus, which is a big one, especially it talks about productivity, getting work done, how to focus on things. So the weird thing about focus is that so much of it comes down to trust. I want to preface this by saying that, I don't know any of your individual situations, and certainly not of those who are listening in the replay, but there is an interior and an exterior aspect of the inability to focus, where say if we have a neurochemistry thing that needs to be corrected with a physician, with medication, then this is a discussion to be had between one and one's physician. But there's also an interior thing, which is about our relationship with focus, for which there's also its own set of techniques and ideas. And in this case, it's trust. So focusing is the most difficult when we don't trust that we're doing the right thing. Because if you're working on something, let's say like I was working on this presentation earlier, and then it would occur to me, oh wait, there's something else I ought to be doing instead. There's something else I should be doing instead. It takes a lot of trust to know that I'm not missing out on anything important, that I'm not wasting my time, that I'm not doing the wrong thing, that I'm going to stick with what I said I was going to do. Thank you to the distraction, but I'll stick with what I'm doing. This applies both right now with what we're doing. It applies with, say, what we're doing in this moment, the work that we're working on. And it applies also to our purpose in general, what we're doing in the world, our job in the world, where there will always be something that will come up of the woodwork and say that you should be doing something else instead. And cultivating the wherewithal to commit is where the power to focus comes in. Okay, so now let us dive deeper into the principle of power. Power. So you may be wondering on some level, why are we here? As in, why did I create this program? Why did I create this event? Why did I invite you all out here? What is in it for me? So at the very, very core, for me personally, just so that you know this about me, if there were a tagline under the name Brent, it would be to serve the awakening of human consciousness. That's what I want to do. That's what gets my gears going. That's what makes me happy. That's what I love to do. It's really exciting because as it appears to me in my own vision, as I look at us, as a collective, there is an intense period of growth. There is an intense spasming of growth in consciousness, in humanity, that is generally silent. It goes unnoticed by journalists. It, of course, goes unnoticed by media, on certain areas of, say, TikTok or whatever. Like, you'll hear people talking about it, but generally it is like corn, the popping of popcorn, where the internal heat, the internal pressure of individual humans everywhere is getting so high that everybody is growing in a way that feels very isolating. And then everybody is, in their own way, according to their own timing, according to the perfection of their own journey, they are popping like popcorn. And so a crucial element that moves us into that popping, into the blossoming of our potential, the awakening of further human consciousness, a crucial element that for which none of this can happen unless it's here, is power. Power awakens in us. We are individually and collectively served. And in fact, that distinction starts to melt away. The line between selfish and altruistic dissolves, for example. So if I'm wealthy, I can help you become wealthy. So therefore, it's not selfish for me to desire and focus on collecting wealth, because my intention and my heart desire is to serve the collective, and I can only do that if I'm wealthy. If I'm strong, I can help you get strong. If I'm awakened, I can help you awaken. So I serve myself so I can serve the collective, and I serve the collective so that I can serve myself. So we can get into some definitions. What is power? Power is being on friendly terms with fear, pain, and death. It's quite a line. With fear, pain, and death. But I'd like for you to take a minute to consider what happens when you arrive at perfectly friendly relationship with fear, pain, and death. What would that be like? If you feel into it, it's power. It's understanding and differentiating between absolute and relative truth. And to put it in very simple terms, whenever we say, oh yeah, it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. That's knowing the difference between absolute and relative truth. You can win some, lose some, get some, gain some, lose some. Things come and go. Things go up and down. We do our best to create success. We get whatever we're going to get. All of that happens in the relative plane. And then there's absolute wellness, which is knowing ourselves on the bottom level, knowing ourselves as consciousness. And then having that differentiation in place allows us to play the game of life with total abandon, with total play creativity, because it's not a high stakes game anymore. That's what it means to understand and differentiate between the two. Power is being one-pointed, congruent toward the most important thing. The most important thing now, the most important thing in general. Having one thing, having some idea of what it is, and having the freedom to give yourself to it entirely. There is never letting anything move you from your center. Being at center. Imagining yourself as a monarch, say like a king or a queen, in your throne, in your court, in your castle, surrounded by your subjects, your people, things come and go, news comes, decision, like requests for help come in, a decision goes out, but the monarch never leaves his or her chair. Nothing ever puts a person off their center. And power is in your ability and willingness to choose, even if there's only one choice, which is a paradox. If you are in a place of powerlessness, helplessness, feeling like there's no opportunity, there's nothing to choose, there's nothing can be done, then the very first thing is we choose the only choice that's available. I choose this. If you want a sudden and rapid shifting of power, a rapid awakening of power in yourself right now, do it by saying, I choose this, whatever this is. Boom. And then from there, what now? What brings power in? I'll pause for a second. How are we doing here? Is this landing nicely? A few thumbs up or nods or anything? Yeah, we're doing good?
Yeah. I love that last statement. Whatever this is, I choose this. That was key.
Thank you. Thank you, Ali. Very nice. Good. What brings power in? Power comes when you take action on your inner knowing. I went to this retreat, as I spoke about to some of you, to see my favorite speaker, Matt Kahn. It was all about intuition. And a lot of words were said, and they all centered around a single message, which was act on your knowing. What is there in your inner knowing, and can you trust it to act on it? Power comes when you choose for yourself. Power comes when you recognize yourself in everyone. When you recognize yourself in everyone, there's nothing to oppose, nobody to oppose, nothing to fight. And then through that orientation, whatever you do will, by its own virtue, serve the collective. It'll serve you, serve all. It'll serve rippling out in every direction. Once that seeing is there, the seeing of yourself in everyone. True power evades articulation. So it's paradoxical, and we've been exploring some of these paradoxes already. It's in motion and yet motionless. So as an example of that, giving this talk, a lot of the stuff that I'm sharing with you is channeled. So I just channeled a lot of it out. Felt good, felt true. There was an intense desire to share it with you. And so there's an unfolding, a doing in this talking, and yet mostly an observing, a witnessing of the talking. So there's a motion and a motionlessness. It's within and without your grasp. So we are becoming more deeply acquainted with power, and we're understanding it more, and thus able to use it more, and thus it becomes something that is more within our grasp. And yet there's always a quality of power that is outside our grasp. There's an element that's always outside of our control, even as our circle of control continues to expand. This will always be the case. It is known and yet unknown. We can understand it, yet never really totally understand it. And it's doing, but without a doer, the way that I was mentioning earlier. Fortunately, it's not going to stop us, the fact that we can articulate it, because there's still a lot of use. The conversation of power is just this mind, as I hope you're beginning to get a sense of as we go into this. You can see how deep this goes. partially in a sense of how interesting it is. Like part of what I hope is that you just like see, everything that's so fascinating about this subject. Perhaps you already did coming into it. And then also all sorts of practical tools and insights and tips can be mined out of this mind. So our job now is to reconnect you with your power. We do this in two ways. We do it in an additive way. So we do things to create more power in your life. And we also do it in a subtractive way where we're clearing away psychology and anything else that blocks your power. Why would we do this? Does it matter? Well, if you're not centered in your power, then choices are made for you. If you're not grounded in your power, then you're not oriented in any way. There's no compass. There's no North Star. There's no map. There's no sense of knowing what we're doing. We're just adrift. If you're not powerful, then your greater potential cannot be expressed. Really big on this idea of inner potential. That as you become more of yourself, as you become more powerful, your offerings and your service and your presence in the world contains more potency. And that which you offer it becomes more individuated, more unique, more, there's nobody quite like it. There's nobody who does it quite like this person. If you're not being power, excuse me, there's a typo. If you're not being power, then you're cut off and you feel like you don't belong. So there's a sense of purposelessness and like being an alien in the world, not knowing what to do, feeling not totally seated in yourself. The struggle with power is unique. So which one is it for you? For example, are you not taking true action that would absolutely move new energy, that would burst open the doors, that would create new motion? Are you not speaking truth that is there for you to be said, whether internally or externally? Are you caught in webs of victimhood, blame, helplessness? This is a big one. Are you disempowered by media, journalism, and stories of our collective downward spiral? So when you hear about, say, politics or the climate or, war, any of these things, do you feel disempowered, like you're just a chess piece being moved around by people with greater power? And then finally, number 5, are you so at odds with the now moment that you're basically not here? So something that we can start now, something that we can activate now, where the rubber starts to hit the road. What is your intuition saying to you? Supposing you trusted your intuition completely, just for a minute, right? Because the ego, the mind, the fear structure, the survival mechanism, it does not like discussions about intuition because it feels distinctly unsafe to it. Mind says, how do I know? How do I know? How do I know for sure? It wants to ask a question and ask again and ask again and ask in a different way. So we open up a safe little territory just within our call here of what would it be like if you just trusted yourself totally. And you knew that trusting yourself totally doesn't mean that you're going to do something dumb. It doesn't mean you're going to, something's going to fall apart. That's generally an overstatement on the part of the mind. The mind's like, oh, well, if I just trust my intuition, if I just trust myself, then everything will die and everything will fall apart, right? And so that's, that sort of hyperbolic language is how you know the ego mind is in control. You'll recognize your intuition. This is a really important hint by your intense reluctance to hear it. So if something occurs to you to do, say, and you're like, no, please, God, no, anything else, that's how you know. That's a really good hint. Has I don't know become a chorus for you? I learned this from a coach that I worked with, and also Emma. This is a very, very important course in her programs. Her name's Roxanne Kuchik. And she'd have these big, big, intense clearing programs. And a big course that would come up is, I don't know, I'm not sure, I can't tell. And the invitation there would be, where are you constantly repeating to yourself, I don't know, I'm not sure, I can't tell? Where is that just what your default is? And would you be willing to clear it? So I'm going to take us through a clearing. All you have to do for this, if you're new to clearings, is just simply just say yes if it feels good for you to say yes. So anywhere in your psychology, there's a commitment to saying, I don't know. Anywhere there's a belief, I don't know. Anywhere I don't know, I'm not sure, I can't tell has become your reality. Would you be happy and willing to release it, to allow it to be released and detached? If so, just say yes to yourself. Imagining as it's all encapsulated and just watching in your mind's eye as it returns to sender, returns to God's light, if you wish, return to whencesoever it came from. 1, 2, 3, release. Noticing how it feels in your physiology. If it feels like an opening or an unwinding or a relaxing, that's how you know it's hit its mark. Reacquainting ourselves further with power. Now, where and how do you deceive yourself? And let's be nice and gentle. Nice and gentle. Where are we lying to ourselves? Where are we telling ourselves little fips, little stories? Where are we overcomplicating something that is otherwise very simple? We all do it. It's totally innocent and kind of adorable. How do we engage in self-deceit? The key for this one is to ask sincerely. As long as the sincerity is cranked up to a hard minimum of 8 or 9 out of 10, then the answer will be revealed to you. And then if you're willing to see the answer and just allow it to be there without fighting it or arguing, then power comes online. And that is something that can be done right now. I'm going to list out four major ways in which power returns, ways in which power is activated and amplified. These are the 4 arms, we could call them. Power via intention. So the use of the power of intention. How do we do that? Very simple. We say, I intend to do this. I intend for X to happen. Noticing the interesting there's a very unique feeling around using intention. When you say I intend, it's a very cool feeling. Number 2, power via commitment. Committing to something. The ego mind, the fear structures, they do not want to commit. But there is freedom in commitment. And we all know what it's like when you commit to something, there's freedom. It's like, finally, it's over. Finally, I'm in. Finally, I'm out of the pre-decision limbo and I'm in. I'm doing something. Now I can give myself over. Number 3, power via truth. Dissolve confusion by speaking truth, as we were just doing, internally or externally. And then finally, power via love. Cultivating an intention to love more deeply, more fiercely, more unconditionally than ever before. directing love to every and any aspect of the manifested universe that we have decided is undeserving of love. Whenever that's done, conflict is dissolved, unification happens, wasted energy is reallocated, we return to center, power is brought online. So, introducing super excellent second annual The Personal Empowerment Mastermind. So the offering here is that it is an 8-week course that will consist of weekly live calls, rather like this, that are designed to reunite you with and ground you in your native, authentic power. We got into some specifics around exactly what it looks like. So we talked about what it looks like to not have power, what it looks like to have power, how to apply it practically, but also how to consider it generally. So my hope is that you have a sense of what this would mean for you if we were to amplify this quality in yourself. Each call will address the subject from a new point of view. So we'll come at it from many different ways. And what that will achieve is ideally a holographic concept of it. So a hologram being consisting of many images that gives it that 3D quality, none of the one images being the crucial or essential one, but all of them work together to create this emergent property that is the thing, that is the actual image. And so we're just going to keep coming at power from all the different ways. And part of that will be in my own, what I've come up with in my contemplation of power, but it will also be a result of what we do over these weeks. It'll be a result of our conversation. It'll be a result of what you request both explicitly, so like stuff that you mention out loud in the group forum, but also energetically, how it feels energetically, but what's being requested energetically. I will be tuned into it the whole time, and I will allow that to guide this process as well. You'll ultimately come away from this time with a profound, intuitive understanding of what power is, how we embody it, how we lose it, and how many ways it can express itself in our lives. So how does it work? In each of the calls, I will guide you using 5 different methods. At minimum, there could be more. I reserve the right to add more. But one will be questions, like the one that I was offering. Clearings, like the one I also did. There will be a good, healthy amount of clearings. So teachings, just transmissions that'll open up new ways of considering what we're talking about. A repeat after me technique inspired by Matt Kahn, where sometimes if you watch some of Matt Kahn's videos, he will offer a series of things to say, and saying them out loud reroutes the subconscious mind so that you can internalize what it's like to experience firsthand what we're actually talking about. Because like a deep commitment that I have to you and to this program is that we're not just talking about stuff. This stuff that we're doing comes alive in your experience in a way that is organic and healthy for your highest and best well-being. So that'll be one way of doing it. And then live coaching, Q&A. So if you raise your hand, if you have something you want to talk about, whether in your personal life or just abstractly, then we can allow the conversation to guide us deeper. Can a dollar value be possibly put on this, you wonder? Yes. It's 249 Canadian dollars for the whole thing. And that includes a Discord group. And if you're not familiar with it, I'll take you through it, but it's just a messaging app where it'll be private, it'll be for us, and we can talk about these things. I'm going to get into that here, right? Where we can message each other, post stupid memes, and share what's happening as we go through this material. You can attend live or wait and catch the replays. This time may not be wieldy for everybody. It's 11 a.m. on a Thursday morning. I have a toddler daughter who I'm mostly looking after these days, and this is just one time that's available. And so the replays will be key for some of you who cannot otherwise make the time. And there's no wrong way of doing this. This is a powerful and rare resource that can amplify and clarify your sense of power. So there's no wrong way of coming at it. There are no expectations, no judgments, or obligations. So registration is now open. I will do that by creating a button on the original landing page that I will link you all to. And also, if you wish, you can just get in touch and let me know, and I'll send you the link to sign up. We are going to begin this time next week, February 1st. We're going to kick off, and registration will be open until then. Consult your heart and your gut. If you get a yes, then you should definitely sign up. If you're like, how do I consult my heart and my gut? Then sign up and I'll tell you how. And that is all the stuff. Thank you so much, my friends. Thank you very, very much for being here.